Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask Adam Live. ASK is the acronym for Always Seek Knowledge. I hope that this and other episodes have encouraged you to ask, to always seek knowledge, learning a little bit more about yourself, about others, and about the world around us. I have found repeatedly, more and more times, that the more we understand people, the more we understand ourselves, and the more we, understand our environment, meaning the world around us, the more there's a little bit more empathy, understanding, compassion, maybe even love, not only for ourselves, for others, and our environment. I constantly hear this thing called common sense. I don't think it's common sense. I think it's just understanding yourself, understanding others, and your environment. In this week's episode, we're going to talk about reputation engine and building that engine to be social proof. If you're ready like I am, let's get started. People trust what other people trust. It's kind of contagious. Your reputation is actually speaking before you ever enter the room. The question is, what is it saying? In today's marketplace, people often buy trust before they buy products, services, or ideas. Social proof is not manipulation. It's evidence. It's credibility that's made visible. I'll share with you that in my former years as a sales professional, many times people knew so much more about me before I ever walked into their living room or sat at their kitchen table and discussed my plan, my expertise, and how I could provide my services to them. They almost were there to be inquisitive and ask me, how do you do this? Explain to us why you do this. We see on your website that you provide this particular service. I'm curious to know why you do it and why the others we've talked to haven't. One of my questions, and I'll share my little secret, maybe you've implemented this. I remember when I would talk to a potential client and we would get into the discussion of sales, particularly selling their home with real estate. And I always asked, are you interviewing other agents? They would usually hesitate because that's not a question anyone else normally asks. They were just excited to have the appointment and show up. But I knew, I learned, and I implemented. And so I would ask, are you interviewing other agents? And they would hesitate and say, yeah, we just want to get a broad feel. This is important to us. And I understand. I agreed with them completely. How many agents are you interviewing? 3 of them. We're trying to line it up this week, so that's where Thursday would be important if we could meet with you. So you're interviewing them on Thursday. Great. When's your last appointment? 3 p.m. Great. I look forward to seeing you at 5 p.m. I want to be the last person. The reason I want is because usually when I was done, they weren't going to make another phone call to someone else, and they weren't going to call anyone back. I was pretty confident about that. Although I must share with you, there was 1 or 2 incidences that I did get the "we'll let you know," and that was fine. I wasn't arrogant. I was also confident that if we didn't come to an agreement with everything I provided, all the information that I could offer, and the services that I had proof I could render, well, then it probably wasn't a good fit, and it was just as well. I was actually saving myself some time, and the 45 to 60 minutes I had already spent with them, Well, that was investment enough, and I was okay. Many times we came to an agreement, but I also didn't want to be put under pressure, knowing that we were going to come to an agreement, that there was another 30 to 40 minutes of approving paperwork. I didn't want to, hey, we got to let you go. Someone else is coming and we'll call you, and then have to follow up with another meeting just to go through paperwork. I was always prepared. I had the paperwork already ready. It was living with this level of confidence that I already knew kind of what my reputation was. I learned through the process of repetition, and the more I discovered people were already prepared to work with me before I even walked in the door. Usually it was a discussion from a friend or a family member or a coworker that I had already helped. And so my reputation was already out there. There was a service I provided. I either got them the best deal or sold something at top dollar and negotiated quite well on their behalf. I was also clear with the descriptions of agency and how I was serving them. All of this is building a reputation. And this is the reputation that, like I said, people make judgments long before you ever enter the room. They already know who they're dealing with. That is what you want to have. You want to have that credibility already visible. This enhanced my career substantially because a third of my business was referrals through an open door, and a third was testimonials through clients, and a third was recommendations, which created opportunities. Even people that didn't quite know me, just because they had heard about me. Not to mention the abundance of broadcasting that I did on social media at the early stages. This is early 2000s, by the way. Facebook was kind of the thing. Instagram was just being developed. By 2008, 2010, yeah, we were starting to implement things. And I was already ahead of the game with graphics and drones and sky footage and showing 3D graphics of properties so that you could visually see yourself being there and save yourself the trip. I was also pretty upfront to not hide things. So people, much of my feedback from listings that I had, which were sellers I was responsible for representing, the agent and the client, I remember always said, wow, the images that were taken, you really captured the perspective of the property. We felt like we were already there, already living there, already seeing all the attributes about the property before we ever got there. I did that in 24 shots. And the reason I did that, or reason how I did that, is because I went out with the photographer and said, this is the angle, this is what I want to get. I didn't just send a photographer out with the lockbox code and say, hey, take some pictures of the house. Remember, I'm representing the sellers. And so when I went out and said, hey, I want this angle, and I actually educated some of the photographers to some different vantage points of how I would like my homes shot. This was building my reputation because not everybody was doing this. It was pretty much, here's the lockbox, take some pictures, and by the way, try not to take pictures of the clutter. If I had to go 45 minutes before that shoot and move things from room to room, I did so because it was for the client and I wanted things to look their best. I didn't always have the perfect client, no offense. And they honestly didn't have time or the energy or even to want to spend the money to do that. So I helped them out, and that built a reputation. See, professional relationships create credibility before a conversation ever begins. I promise today you'll learn how to intentionally build a reputation engine that creates trust, influence, and opportunity long before you ever make a sale or have a conversation. See, the big idea that I understood, especially since sales, since we're working with that today, many people just ask, can you do it? What's your history? Have you sold a home like this before? Have you done it? Have you done it for someone else like me? Everyone always thought they were relatively more important than the last person. In fact, I remember hearing a quote. I kind of argued about it sometimes. Sometimes it resonated, but most of the time I argued. I once heard a person say, "You're only as good as your last sale." Well, I object because my last sale may have been a charity aspect. A little bit of what I did was giving back, and I worked with the foreclosed properties and discounted properties. So if I sold a foreclosed home at pretty much the tax sale transaction of maybe 20 or 30,000, well, that wasn't as good as my last sale because like I said, it was charity. I was helping out the bank, the local bank, to just liquidate the property and get it off their books. Now, yeah, they got the best they could because again, the property was slightly distressed. That wasn't my last sale. I was geared for another one. So if you looked at the spreadsheet of my sales year over year, yeah, there was a couple of 20, 50, 175,000 sales, and there was one for 750,000, and then one for 250. It was all over the board. I was keeping my calendar filled. I was at the closing table often, and I was being productive. So it's not the last sale. I looked at productivity. Anyway, I digress. Can you do it? Have you done it? And have you done it for someone like me? These are your social proof answers that you should be focused on. I love a good acronym. So the PROOF framework. P is for performance. The foundation of every reputation is results. Before marketing, show your performance, show how you serve, and explain and demonstrate how you solve problems. I found many times I was teaching and educating, which is why some of my reputation was being the heart of a teacher or having the heart of a teacher. Because my reputation was built by teaching that I had promises that I kept, deadlines that I met, and expectations that I exceeded. Much of this was a lot of keeping track of all of my transactions. Not necessarily a brag sheet, but just to demonstrate I could pretty much handle anything. Was it a distressed sale? I could manage the bank and handle all the peripheral things that made it, well, really a win and not so much work for them. Yeah, there was a few high maintenance clients, and I say that respectfully because they wanted their property to be perfect. So when the lawn care didn't show up in time for showing, yeah, it was a little disappointing that the property didn't show its best. I did the best I could implement that and even have a phone call, especially when it came to like the open house. Everybody was going to show up. How can we get that grass cut a week earlier? It's a bit overdue. It's springtime. I found myself constantly asking as I sat down and looked at each day. And what are the challenges that would come about? And what I asked myself was, what do people constantly thank me for? And many times it was because it was really a painless transaction. And they had heard all the horror stories from friends and coworkers, people in the neighborhood about certain individuals that, well, just didn't perform like they said. The old adage, the brochure looked great, but when you got there, they must have taken it from a different angle, or they didn't depict the property as expected. And that is where, well, what I found time served in the business, knowing particular properties, it could usually help a client out. When they said that they were interested in a property, having already seen it, either showing it to someone else or going to that open house, or just being aware of the property and its location, I could share with them, in all honesty, a little bit about what they could expect. Now, I wasn't deterring them from the property, like, hey, you have to drive through several trailers to get to this property. Not many people were excited about that. But when I shared with them that when you get to the gate that becomes your property, it's kind of an element of seclusion. And you can pretty much assure that nobody's ever going to get far enough to the end of the road to discover you're there. Many people like that privacy. So I found that, well, honesty was the best policy because it not only encouraged them to, oh, now I really want to see it. This might be what we're looking for. Or if it wasn't, it allowed them to immediately dismiss it and obviously save both of us a lot of time, confusion, heartache, and disappointment. R is relationships. Relationships do create referrals. No matter what business you're in, relationships create referrals. The strongest marketing often comes from clients, coworkers, audiences, peers, and mentors. Someone who knows you, someone who can say something about you, positive most of the time, but even something negative. I remember a client approached me and said, "We're really anxious to work with you." A coworker said, "You're very difficult. You're very to the point. You're very honest, and you got it done." They admitted that they had a property that was struggling. You made it happen. They weren't really pleased with the outcome, and they were honest about that. But you also made the deal happen. And considering that it was something that, well, previous listing had expired, well, they now saw that results could occur no matter what the condition of the property was. So, and they were honestly a little tired. I want to say this, it probably expired. I was about the third agent to have the property. And just a little inside baseball, I guess, is that the second agent basically copied the first agent. When I went out and took fresh images with a photographer where we did professional shots, great clarity, three-dimensional imagery so that it had all the vibrant color. I also made sure that it wasn't a cloudy day when we took those images so you could see the views, you could see the blue sky, and you could see the ruralness of this particular cabin. Well, that's what sold it. And honestly, within 30 days, we sold the property. Whereas they had already spent almost 6 to 9 months being listed with other agents. Again, they weren't tickled with the final results, but they also got the end result, which was a sold property. People may forget what you sold. They rarely forget how you made them feel. You identify 5 people who already believe in your work. Well, now you already have a group of people that can cheer for you, that can say good things about you, can share the experience with others who haven't yet experienced. And that, well, that's your reputation. That's what gets out there. Remember, people may forget the transaction. They rarely forget how you made them feel. O is for outcomes. People trust evidence. And that's why I always made sure to have some level of evidence always on hand. I'm probably dating myself a little bit, but I did have a hardcover book. A hardcover book that described each one of the steps that I would perform. Now, much of it was kind of redundancy, and I didn't like to drone on. So I had little tabs in my book that basically focused on the 5 things that most people were concerned about. What were the wins, the transformations, the testimonials, and a really great success story. Although one success story, well, it's kind of interesting. And okay, I'll share with you. But I always had these tabs ready. So when somebody said, "Hey, we just want to know what's your timeline for selling?" All right, here's my wins. My average is within a certain period of time. And I was upfront to share with them that their particular property could fall in this category. But there was a few things I would ask them to do. Or if their property completely qualified, I felt pretty confident I could do it. Again, I was upfront and honest to share they may need to make some improvements in order to fall into this category. Many times it was the transformations. How I could take that stale old listing that's not moving forward and transform it into a new property, new perspective, where all of a sudden the imagery that would show up of their home in the multiple listing services and online services, online social media, and all that stuff would show up different than any other presentation before it. And in that case, it would be brand new, not just a relist. Testimonials always shared that I could do this and that had been done before. And the success story, well, it wasn't the negotiation. It was actually a strange feat of nature. If you've ever seen the movie with Chevy Chase, Funny Farm, in a short story, basically he goes somewhere to retire and to write, a calm place in a small village that he just has trouble fitting in. And at the end, he challenges the neighborhood to help him sell the home, almost to the point where the perfect couple shows up to see the home, and all of the aspects of things, all the neighborhood is perfect, the people are perfect, everyone is kind, nice gestures, they just are made to feel welcome, because the goal is somebody gets a prize who is most instrumental in helping them sell the home. One of them, one of the actions was the hunters that he didn't get along with so well had some deer that would run across the backyard at a given point. Trying to keep this story short, I'm in the car with some clients, and we're going to look at a particular property in a pretty rural location. But I got to share with you the views looking over the Potomac River were pretty darn awesome. They were at about 250, 275 feet above that water, looking out over that West Virginia landscape. Anyway, we're heading towards the property. I know it's at the dead end of a street. And as we travel along the dirt/gravel road through the neighborhood, I'm in front and they're following. There's probably a good 400 to 500 feet between the vehicles. And as I pass, between us walked two deer across the road. Let me tell you, when we got to the home, the client said, I don't care what the property looks like, this is it, and accused me of the quoted line in the movie, cue the deer. Again, a small feat of nature, but this allowed me to help build and improve confidence, knowing that I had these stories and I had the statistics and I had the time served with experience. And I found that many clients went from avoiding the presentation to engaging in the process, wanting to know a little bit more. Their top 3 things turned out to be top 5 because I shared with them some of the things that I do and don't do. And that when putting that positive energy out there, well, it creates success. The second O is online presence. Your digital footprint is your modern day business card, whether it be LinkedIn, a website, a podcast, social media, any one of the various channels. I know some of them are starting to get dated and some of them are new. Either way, you need to follow the trends on social media. Where is everyone at? Not just specifics. I know many people badmouth certain sites and social media fields based on who owns it. But you don't work for the owner. You're utilizing a tool that they've provided. You want to get yourself out there. You want to get yourself in front of the people you want to work with most. And that's everyone. Unless you have a specific niche, then okay, maybe 1 or 2 sites. But honestly, there's several programs out there that allow you to broadcast most all of them. That's where you want to be. But you got to ask yourself, does your online presence match your expertise? And are you visible enough? And visible enough, I want to share with you, in my experience, is not just always out having fun. Some of your visualization that you want to provide to a client, well, It falls into the demonstrating of value consistently as well. Show yourself at that open house. Show yourself at a home. Show yourself at your new listing. Show yourself with sellers or buyers at the property you just closed. Whether it be a snapshot or a video testimonial, this is helping you build that credibility. Hint, even if it's not your open house, show up early, before the traffic, speak to the agent, maybe find a nice architecturally aesthetical background of the property, maybe the backyard, the view, and snap a short video. The agent's busy setting up anyway, and they won't mind. But you demonstrating value consistently, that you're out there, that you're doing something, it's actually pretty beneficial. Put yourself there. Hey, here I am at this great new listing at such and such street, and the views are amazing. Look at that behind me. Or if you're interested, contact me. That simple aspect is creating valuable consistency. Again, doesn't always have to be yours, but it will help you build enough. You'll stay busy with your own. People cannot refer what they can't remember. So remember, you want to make each one of these steps memorable. One of the ways I started out, and well, it's kind of dating myself, and it's gotten actually a lot easier, was even a property that I sold and or I purchased with a client, that I would create a CD of the images and all of the documentation that they could play. Now, it created not only a memory disc for the house that had so many memories that they sold, but I would also give the buyer a disc. And the buyer would be able to see what the property looked like at purchase, as well as a record of all the documentation from that transaction. Again, keeping the specifics important for them. That way, when they decided to sell it again, they at least had a recording of all that information they could provide to the next person or myself. If they made any improvements to the property, they could see what was original. Not to mention, it was branded heavily with all of my information. This helped them to remember not only the transaction, but what something looked like when they originally purchased, as well as the evolving changes they may have done to make it their home. Remember, not only was that basically the cornerstone, but I also stayed in touch with them through communication and just being in the neighborhood. If I saw they were outside, maybe doing some home improvements, I'd stop, comment, hey, the house looks great. I was just showing the house down the street, or I was talking to the so-and-so about their next listing, and I think I might be in the neighborhood a little bit more often. Can't wait to see more improvements. Hope you're enjoying the place. Anything you can tell me, or anyone you know who might be looking to buy in the neighborhood, the place will be available for sale. You know, just sharing that information before the sign came up gave them that inside scoop. And neighbors love the inside scoop every time, even if they didn't know. They were usually surprised. I told them in confidence, because they were a client of mine, hey, please don't share the information. But if you know someone looking or would like a specific person in your world to maybe be on your street as your neighbor, maybe someone looking to be in this area, I would love to help show them the home. And guess what? That turned into another sale. I wasn't selling them. I was just reminding them who I am and what I do. This brings us to F, the feedback loop. See, great reputations are continuously refined. Now, the first day I started real estate, I wasn't doing this. The first day I started a business, I wasn't doing this. This came from continuously refining these actions, figuring out what I was doing well, understanding what could be better, and also what impact I'm creating. Social media was a mess at first because I was just understanding algorithms, hashtags, some sites that even understood the hashtag or the @ symbol. We've gotten a lot more advanced since the early 2000s, but let me tell you, the more I learned about something, the more I implemented it. And the more I discovered that those implementations, well, it helped people find me, as well as see me and understand me. Many times, I got the impact that I was creating. I can't tell you the rave reviews that I got from just the imagery. I might have mentioned it before, but I can't help but say the professional photography that we used, even prior to AI, yeah, the skies were a little gray, but you know what? My photographer implemented blue skies and put those behind the home. So every home showed up on its best day. Now, this wasn't altering. Let me be clear. I wasn't doing any manipulation, but a blue sky behind a home looks a lot better than gray clouds and snow on the ground. These are important features because when a home looks its best, it's when it sells at its best. It was from what I was doing well, doing better, and what I was constantly creating. Well, that was giving me feedback, not criticism. And feedback, well, that was marketing intelligence. It was constantly letting me know that what I was doing was working. And what small things that I wasn't doing, I started to implement. Some of it was hearing from clients and customers that would say, hey, this would be really great. I would love to have a memory. That's when the CD became every client's closing gift, amongst other things. But when you strike upon that idea and discover how to master it, now it could become a flash drive, if you will. It doesn't have to be a CD. Maybe a designated something on YouTube where it's a link. Maybe it's a designated folder that you have in your website that's specifically passcode issued to a client where they can access that information. Whatever it is, the world has opportunities. Figure out what works best for you. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't at least give you the 5 fastest ways to build social proof. Let's go through them. Collect testimonials immediately after every success. Don't give it a day, don't give it a week. Many times at the closing table, right outside the closing facility, was when I grabbed and captured those videos. Yeah, it wasn't the perfect setting, it wasn't studio, using a smartphone, but I captured it. In fact, one time I actually asked someone to come and make sure that they filmed it correctly or properly because I wanted it more for a demonstration. So this particular client got it with the closing sign in the background, and we really tried to do it up well. Had some professional photographer do it on a full-scale video system, just because it was something I wanted to stamp onto my branding. Again, if you're starting out, don't have that extra expense, or a friend with that high equipment, fine, just use your smartphone. Get somebody to hold it and do a testimonial. Could you share with us? I started out simply just holding the phone and saying, hey, tell others how great the transaction was. Yeah, it wasn't scripted, wasn't practiced. They usually told the truth, and you got it captured. And I shared it on social media. Share clients' wins and celebrate with others. I often ask, hey, who could I share this with? Do I have your permission? Because friends became friends. And the more friends that I had of theirs on Facebook, I would share it with them. And when their friends saw them on my feed, well, they commented on it. So you were getting that automatic feedback. See how you're almost recreating or creating a village of positivity from not only your client, but because you're friends of other clients that are friends of them that then give feedback to even the feedback that says, hey, how can I be that person? And now you have another new client to add to your forever list. Number 3, you want to publish consistent content. Visibility builds familiarity familiarity. Don't like that word. Sorry. But it builds what you're doing. Like I said, you go to the open house, even if it's not yours. When you're Another thing I would do is when I went to someone else's listing and showed the home, and the client was like, "Yeah, we don't like it," and it was kind of the last home, and they were concluding, and so we agreed we were going to meet back at the office after lunch and reconvene with everything that we'd done that day. I spent a couple of moments just finding something specific about the home. I appreciated it. Maybe it was the cute little breakfast nook that was built in. Maybe it was the antique appliances that were implemented into this particular home. Whatever that unique feature was, I would do a selfie video to say, hey, look, I'm at this unique property where I found some really unique features. If something like this is what you're looking for, contact me. I'd love to show you this property. Again, wasn't my listing, but I was looking for buyers. I was looking for people that I could show this property to that would eventually purchase, and that makes it a sale. Again, anytime I was doing something real estate related, even some of my volunteering things, I would do a selfie and share, here's what I'm doing. Here is something that I'm doing, not building my business, but giving back. Constantly, I was doing that and getting information back from people that they appreciated, that I wasn't always salesy. It was kind of cute. Hey, I like that feature at that home. Not what I'm looking to buy, but you're in the biz. You're doing that, and you can apply this to anything. So whether you're in any kind of sales or any kind of business, showing yourself continuously being in action, well, it builds your credibility. And speak whenever possible. Stages create authority. Maybe you're at a board table. Maybe you're doing some peripheral activity that is with real estate that's with a board. Show yourself being in a meeting. Maybe not a video, but a quick snapshot. Hey, here I'm at the table with fellow realtors. Here I am at the such and such board. Here I am with the local Rotary Club. Here I am with the Chamber of Commerce as they're organizing something for the small village that you live in, and show that you're participating in your community. See, again, this builds credibility that you not only make and create transactions, but you're also part of a community. And it's important. People want to know that you're not just there for the business, but you're there for others. This is a tough one. Number 5, because everybody wants to do everything. Become known for one thing first, then broaden it out later. But be specific now. Do you work specifically with luxury homes? Stick to it and stay there. Do you work with starter homes and getting families in, where you negotiate a lot with that first time home buyer that's looking for that creative financing option that will get them in the door to get them to that first property? Do you work on foreclosures? Do you work on rural properties? Do you work on specific neighborhoods? Maybe I remember one fellow agent specifically loved the golf course communities because they loved golf, and they could tell you about the 17th, the trials of the 17th hole in various communities. So that was their specificity, and anything else they referred out, and that's fine. But focus and become known for one thing first. So let's recap. The PROOF framework is performance, relationships, outcomes, online presence, and your feedback loop. Remember, reputation is earned offline and amplified online. My call to action for you today is download the Reputation Engine Builder, audit your current social proof assets, gather 3 new testimonials this month, and share your biggest takeaway using hashtag Reputation Engine and tag at AskAdamLive. People may discover you through marketing, but they stay with you because of trust. Build a reputation so strong that opportunities start looking for you. This has been another great episode of Ask Adam Live. Now let us all go out and make it a great day.